Hello, Anthony Barr here. Thank you for listening to the Fur Faithful Podcast. Glad you're listening. And I hope you would head over to iTunes, give me a 5-star rating, and write a review. It would be appreciated. Well, one thing we can do is we can choose our attitude. We have the freedom of choice. We have the freedom to choose what we want to do, how we want to live. But the best decision that you can make is your attitude. So I see a story here in Ruth chapter 1. It says, Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was famine in the land. And a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wives and his 2 sons. And then later it says, and Elimelech Naomi's husband died. And Mahlon and Chilion died also, both of them. So in this story of Ruth, Naomi, her world is caving in. And I want to talk to you about choosing your attitude. How can you have a good attitude when your world is caving in? Now, what's going on here? Elimelech, which means God is my king, had a wife named Naomi, and her name means pleasantly. And they had 2 children, Mahlon and Chilion. And Mahlon's name means sickly, and he was married to Ruth. And Chilion, his name means wasted, and he was married to Orpah. So as they move from Bethlehem, Judah, because there's famine in the land, to the country of Moab, because they felt that there was more nutrition there to give their sickly children the nutrition to sustain life. But something happens. Elimelech dies. But Naomi chose to have a good attitude when she realized that there was famine in the land. Naomi, the world was caving in, and she chose to have a good attitude when they had to make that move from the Bethlehem, Judah, to the country of Moab. Her name still was pleasantly. When she realized that her son Mahlon and Chilion were sick, she continued to have a pleasant attitude. It wasn't until after Elimelech died, she continued to have a good attitude. But all of a sudden, they were there in the country of Moab 10 years, and their sons married 2 women, one named Ruth, friendly, the other Orpah, her name means hind. And an unsuspected thing happened. Her boys died. And the Bible says she realized that God has visited his land, and there was bread back in Bethlehem, Judah. So now that she no longer had her husband, no longer had Mahlon and Chilion, she was going to go back. And she turned again, my daughters, go your way. And they lifted up their voice and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her. So she has this whole argument about, hey, I have no more sons for you to marry. Hey, go back home. Maybe you'll find a good man and continue to live in life. I'm going back home. And that's just what people do when they have the wrong kind of attitude. Because right now, Naomi is bitter. Right now, she's not that pleasant Naomi when she married Elimelech, whose name means God is king. God is my king. This was a time when they had no kings. Moses and Joshua are off the scene. It's a day of the judges, and a day of the judges the people were ruled by the law, and the judges were there to protect the people under the law and to making sure that, hey, they were continually seeking the Lord. and judgment came upon these people. Famine was there, and usually when famine is in the land, it's because of judgment during the Old Testament times. So Naomi was pleasant during those times. She was pleasant when they had to move. She was pleasant when her husband died. But when Mahlon and Chilion died, something happened. And we find this out in verse 20. And she said unto them, call me not Naomi, call me Mara. For the Almighty hath dealt very bitterly with me. And Mara means bitter. Remember the time when Moses turned the Mara, the bitter waters, into sweet waters? Well, that was her attitude. She was bitter. So Naomi's attitude was always pleasant, but something changed. She became bitter. So how can you have a good attitude when your world is caving in? Ruth's attitude, in verse 16, Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee, or to return from following after thee. For whither thou goest, I will go. Whither thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people. Thy God, my God. She had that friendly attitude. Even though Naomi's bitter, she's Mara right now, Ruth was that friend that stuck close to her during the hard times. She knew she was a pleasant lady. She knew the kind of wife she was. She knew the kind of mother she was to her children. She knew what kind of mother-in-law she was. She was always a pleasant lady. And Ruth, she could have been bitter too. She lost her brother-in-law. She lost her husband. But she continued to have that good, friendly spirit and clave unto Naomi. Hey, when your world is caving in, you can choose your attitude. You can choose the attitude of being pleasant like Naomi. You can choose the attitude of Mara when Naomi said, don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, because she was bitter. Or you could choose to have that friendly attitude when your world is caving in. Ruth was saying, where thou diest, will I die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught but death part thee and me. So she's like, I'm willing to be your friend and follow you. Till death do us part. She said, I'm going to be the friend to the end. And if that don't happen, let the Lord part thee and me. You can choose, when your world is caving in, you can choose the attitude you want to have. Circumstances should not change your attitude. Your world caving in should not make you bitter. Your world caving in should not cause you to be unfriendly. Your world caving in should not cause you to be unpleasant. You can continue to be pleasant. You can continue to be friendly, because you can choose your attitude when your world is caving in. Your attitude is your mental outlook. It's your frame of mind. It's how you look at life and the way your mind is working. It is how you think. It's what goes on in a person. It's those thoughts and feelings about self and others or circumstances. That is your attitude. It is also expectancy if people are positive. They expect the best If people are negative, they expect the worst. And you usually get what you expect. If Naomi would have stayed bitter, she would have got a bitter end. Your attitude is when you talk to yourself. And what you say to yourself, that's your attitude. Are you angry? Frustrated? Mad? That's your attitude. Some people just need to have a small attitude adjustment. It will affect what you do. It will affect what we do. It's outcome. We are our attitudes. Our attitude is us, and what we do and what we think and what we talk about and how we talk to ourselves, that is our attitude. But if you just have a little small adjustment, it's going to affect your outcome, because it's those little things that matter. Those little things that set you off and put you in a bitter attitude, or a unpleasant attitude, or an unfriendly attitude, because those little things matter. I mean, it mattered the way that Ruth was being treated by Naomi. That could have made a very big turnaround for Ruth. It did for Orpah. She said, man, I see that. I love her and I want to be around her, but I just can't handle that bitter attitude. She kissed her, she cried, she wept, and she went away. But Ruth looked past Naomi's attitude, and she remembered her when she was pleasant with her sons after their father died. And she heard the stories how pleasant she was to her husband. And when they had to move to the country of Moab, she heard how pleasant Naomi was. And she heard about when they found out there was famine in the land, she was pleasant. When she found out that her children were sick, she was pleasant. And Ruth looked all past what she is now. She's bitter, she's hurt. And I don't know if I'd be in that situation. I might be in that situation too. Might be bitter. But Ruth decided to choose her attitude and be friendly towards Naomi during these circumstances. Because your attitude is what's going on in you as a person. Your attitude is your thoughts and feelings. Your attitude is how you think about yourself, how you think about others, and what's going on in this circumstance and how you think about that. But let me tell you, it's those little things that matter. Just that little small attitude adjustment can change your life. And Naomi was bitter. Ruth said, I'm going to continue to have a friendly attitude because I know she's going through a hard time. And that little attitude adjustment of her part matters. Hey, when your world's caving in, you have to stay open-minded. You don't know everything. They told Job, hey, this is happening to you, and you lost your children, and you lost your wealth, and you lost all this because of this, and they made a judgment call and didn't help the whole situation. You don't know everything. So Ruth said, entreat me not to leave thee, or return from following after thee. Whither thou goest, I will go. And where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people. Thy God, my God. Where thou diest, will I die, and there will I be buried. What she was saying, I don't know about these people that you come from. I never been to the place you are. So I'm not going to make a judgment of what's going on there. But I know you were a pleasant lady. And your God, He is God. And I want Him to be my God. So when your world's caving in, don't be so quick to think that you know why it's going on. At that time, that's the times you need to get close to God. And that's what Ruth chose. And get close to your spouse. And Ruth's mother-in-law was Naomi, and she clave to her. When your road's caving in, you have to think for yourself. So many people in this world and the ideas of this world are trying to form you and conform you to the world. You have to think for yourself. The Bible says, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. I mean, this world's going to try to push you this way. Hey, she's bitter. Just leave her alone. No, stay friendly. Stay pleasant. But when your world's, you have to think for yourself. You have to figure this out. Get close to God. Get close to your spouse and talk about things and fall in love with one another and pray one another when your world's caving in. That's the kind of attitude you have to have. You have to think for yourself. Think constructively. You have to think constructively. Finally, my brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. There's a computer term, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Hey, if you put garbage in, garbage is going to come out. If you get bitter if Ruth would have got bitter at her mother-in-law because she was bitter, well, she's putting garbage in. Guess what? Bitterness would have came out. If she was unfriendly, if she thought about those unfriendly thoughts, unfriendliness would have came out. If she thought those unpleasant thoughts, unpleasantness going to come out. So at these times when your world's coming in, you have to think constructively. Whatsoever things are true. Okay, what's really true here? Is it true that Naomi is a bitter person? No. She really is a pleasant lady that loves her Lord, loved her husband, loved her children. Whatsoever things are honest. You know, at those times, you just have to be honest and be an honest, trustworthy person. Whatsoever things are just, and judge things justly. And think pure thoughts and be a lovely person and find out the good report and find those good things in your spouse, in your family, in your home. You have to think constructively when your world starts caving in. So the best decision you can make in this area of freedom of choice is your attitude. And when your world is caving in, you can still be pleasant. When your world is caving in, you can still be friendly. Don't be Mara, bitter. Or don't be Orpah and just run away. Hey, Have an open mind. Think for yourself. Think constructively. Because if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. So you want to put the good things in so the good things will come out. Thank you for listening to the podcast today. I hope this helped you. And listen to the next episode. Don't go away mad. Just go away.